In Chapter 9, we're going to look at floors, walls, and ceilings, all of the other stuff in your food establishment. By cleaning, you are trying to avoid cross-contamination when microorganisms from one food, like raw meat, are introduced from one food or surface to another food, like say lettuce, or surface where they can cause harm. In your establishment, you have utensils, tableware, and equipment with food contact surfaces. Utensils are basically anything that you use to make the food. Tableware is anything your customer uses to eat the food, and food contact surfaces are any surfaces that come into contact with food or any surface from which drips may fall back into food. Tableware must be cleaned and sanitized after each use. Utensils must be cleaned and sanitized after each use. Food contact surfaces must be cleaned and sanitized after each use. And food contact surfaces of cooking equipment, including the cavities of microwave ovens and the racks of pizza ovens, must be cleaned at least daily. You can clean your equipment either manually in a 3-compartment sink or mechanically using a dishwasher. For manual dishwashing, you will need a 3-compartment sink. Before washing the dishes, scrape as much food off of them as possible. Wash the dishes in warm water with detergent in the first compartment of your 3-compartment sink. Rinse the dishes in clean water only in the second compartment of the 3-compartment sink. Sanitize the dishes with hot water or chemicals in the 3rd compartment of the 3-compartment sink, and then allow the dishes to air dry. You may not use towels for drying the dishes. Then once dry, store them upside down or cover them where practical. This picture shows the first compartment in a 3-compartment sink that is being used to wash dishes. Your wash water should never get to this point. Once the bubbles are gone, or once there's scum on the surface, or once there are a large number of food particles present in the wash water, it's important to replace it with clean wash water. If you wish to use hot water for sanitizing in the 3rd compartment of your 3-compartment sink, an integral heating unit must be installed and used. The water temperature must be at least 171 degrees. More commonly, people sanitize with chemicals. You have 3 options: chlorine bleach for the chlorine, quaternary ammonia, or iodophores for iodine. Chlorine bleach must be at least 50 parts per million chlorine and may not be more than 200 parts per million chlorine. QAC, quaternary ammonia, or quat are all different names for the same product. Quat must be at least 200 parts per million and should not be more than 400 parts per million. Iodine must be at least 12.5 parts per million, but should not be more than 25 parts per million. Always follow the manufacturer's instructions on the container. You must also have equipment for testing your sanitizer concentrations. For chlorine, they're little white strips of paper that you dip into the solution and they turn a purple color. The scale for these strips is seen on the left. For quaternary ammonia, one of the types of testers is a roll of orange-colored paper which you tear a piece off of, immerse it in the solution for 10 seconds, and then compare to the scale, as seen on the right. This picture shows a chlorine test strip prior to immersing it in the chlorine solution. This picture shows the same strip after being dipped into the solution. Notice the purple color. You then take the strip, immediately compare it against the chart on the container to determine the concentration in parts per million of chlorine in the solution. Notice how this test strip appears to have been dipped into a solution, as it is wet, but there is no color change on the lower part of the strip. The only color change you can see is near the boundary between the dry and wet areas of the strip. This means that the sanitizer solution was so strong that the chlorine bleached the pigment out of the strip, and it wasn't until the solution wicked up the strip and diluted itself to the point where it was no longer bleaching out the pigment before you got any color change. If you have this happen, your sanitizer solution is too strong and it needs to be diluted. If you mechanically wash your dishes using a dishwashing machine, it's important to sort and scrape the food off the dishes prior to washing them. Pre-soak silverware if necessary. Always operate the machine according to the manufacturer's recommendations. Dishwashing machines sanitize either with hot water or with chemicals. If your dish machine uses hot water to sanitize, the surface of each utensil must reach a temperature of at least 160 degrees. If it is a chemical machine and uses chlorine for sanitization, the chlorine concentration must be a minimum of 50 parts per million. Test strips are required for checking the chlorine concentration. A thermometer is required for checking the temperature in hot water machines. Other sanitizers may be used in dish machines if they meet the requirements of 21 CFR 178.1010. If your dish machine has a hot water booster heater, the odds are good that it is a hot water sanitizing machine. If your dishwashing machine has 3 chemical pumps, it is probably a chemical sanitizing machine. Whatever type of machine you use, it is important to keep it clean. You want to clean the machine at least daily, both inside and out. Keep the spray nozzles clear and unplugged. Delime it as necessary. In the picture on the right, you can see the inside of a machine where there is rust, food particles, and scale present. Also notice how the nozzles are plugged up. You are relying on a proper spray pattern to get clean and sanitized dishes. With this machine, you will get neither. For the people who are washing dishes, make sure to wash your hands after working with dirty dishes and before handling clean dishes. When handling clean dishes, make sure to do so in such a way so as to prevent the contamination of the clean dishes. When handling silverware, always handle the handle end, as seen on the right. Never handle the business end, as seen on the left. When handling glasses, always touch the outer surfaces. Never touch the inner surfaces. When handling plates, touch the rim or bottom. Never touch the flat food contact surface. When handling bowls, touch the outside of the bowl, never the inside of the bowl. If you have a can opener in your food establishment, it's important to keep the blade sharp and clean. In this picture, you can see that there is residue and buildup on the can opener blade. In this picture, you can see the bracket used to hold a counter-mounted can opener. Even if the can opener is clean, in this instance, it will be put back into a dirty bracket. The blade of the can opener rests against the top center part of the bracket, which you can see in this picture is very dirty. If you put a clean can opener in this dirty bracket, you will have a dirty can opener. In this picture, you can see the front of a handheld can opener. The cutting blade is located at bottom. This particular cutting blade is slightly rusty and has some buildup on the front part of it. This picture shows the back of the same can opener blade. Notice the heavy buildup. When you are opening a can, the blade actually goes into the can and may come into contact with the food. A dirty can opener blade such as this one could result in food contamination. It's important to store your clean utensils and tableware in a clean, protected location. Store them upside down if possible to prevent them from accumulating dust and debris. Make sure all utensils are dry before you stack them, and avoid handling the food contact surfaces. You may not store utensils or equipment in locker rooms, garbage rooms, under open stairwells, in toilet rooms, or in vestibules. For single-service items such as plastic forks, knives, and spoons, and straws, keep them in the original container if possible. Store the containers at least 6 inches or more off the floor. Keep your bulk containers for spoons, forks, and knives closed. Use disposable gloves when filling holders. Store bowls, cups, and plates upside down. And store your single-service items away from or above any chemicals. In this picture, you can see pizza boxes stored below chemicals. While you do not eat the pizza box, it is in direct contact with the pizza. So if it becomes contaminated with chemical, it's possible for it to contaminate the food that goes into it and still make people sick. For single-service utensils such as plastic forks, knives, and spoons, or even non-single-service forks, knives, and spoons, always have all of the handles facing the same direction and face the handles towards the customers. If you have straws, they must either be individually wrapped or dispensed through a device that prevents contamination of unwrapped straws. Again, always present the handle side towards the customer, as seen on the left. Never present the business end side towards the customer, as seen on the right. Wiping cloths may be used for a variety of purposes in a food establishment. You may not use wiping cloths for drying or wiping your hands. Moist cloths may be used with sanitizer solution for wiping counters, cutting boards, tables, etc. It's important to use separate cloths for food contact and non-food contact surfaces. Store your cloths in a sanitizer solution, for example 50 part per million bleach solution or 200 part per million quat solution. J. Barker et al. In 2004 found that when a cloth soaked only in detergent solution was used to clean up a norovirus contaminated area, the cloth actually helped to spread the norovirus to other surfaces and did not kill the virus or clean it up. In a food establishment, you may not use sponges for any purpose. For chemicals used in food service establishments, it's important to store your bulk containers away from food storage areas. Store your working containers away from food storage areas or in a separate area below any food, equipment, single-service items, etc. Label working containers with a common name for the contents. Store different types of chemicals, like dish soap and insecticide, separate from each other. If your insecticide contaminates things like dish soap or bleach, it can still lead to poisoning of the customers. In this picture you see two squirt bottles. One contains water, one contains bleach solution. It's important to label both. Any food that you can't identify by looking at it must be identified with the common name, like water. Any chemicals must be identified with the common name for the chemical, like bleach solution. Now we're going to talk about pest control. This picture shows two rats at a soda fountain. One rat is standing up, licking the nozzle of the soda fountain. The other rat is licking out the drip tray. In food service establishment, there's a wide variety of different types of food pests that you may find. You may find things like rats and mice. You might find insects like flies, cockroaches, or moths. Birds could be a possible food service pest. And you might have stored product pests like mites, weevils, or beetles. Pests may help contribute to the spread of diseases. Flies have been implicated in the transmission of 65 different diseases. Pests may cause food contamination. Common houseflies can carry up to 1.9 million bacteria on their bodies. Pests can cause damage to your buildings. They can cause a loss of customers and sales. This leads to reduced profit, and the presence of pests can result in legal violations. If you observe live pests in your establishment, you have a pest problem. If you find dead bodies of pests or droppings from pests, you may have a pest problem. If you find damage or debris from pests being present, or you hear the noise of pests, like from rats moving in the walls, you have a pest problem. If you find footprints in spilled products, or if you smell pests, you may have a pest problem. If you find feathers from birds in your food establishment, that could indicate a pest problem. Smears, rat runs, and fur from rodents, or eggs and larvae from insects can indicate a pest problem. In this picture you can see a candy bar which has been chewed on by mice. Notice the small irregular shaped scraps of paper around the candy bar. Also notice the holes in the packaging and the tooth marks on the candy itself. If you find these signs in any of your stored foods, it might mean that you have a mouse problem. This picture shows the worst case scenario, a pest from your pest problem getting into your food product. The food code requires that openings to the outside shall be effectively protected against the entrance of rodents and insects. Doors shall be tight-fitting and self-closing. Windows shall be kept closed or screened, and drive-ups or service windows must be kept closed except when serving a customer. Normally, we do not have a cockroach population in North Dakota, but cockroaches may come into your food establishments in your shipments or in freight. In 2007, we had reports of a cockroach infestation at a restaurant. In this picture, you are looking at the underside of a countertop. You can see the gap between the countertop and the cupboard in the middle of the picture. In this gap, you can see several adult cockroaches, along with some juvenile cockroaches and some cockroach droppings. This picture shows adult German cockroaches, which is the species of cockroach most commonly found in infestations of food establishments in the 1st District Health Unit. If you find cockroaches in your establishment, you should contact a pest control company immediately. You should also contact the 1st District Health Unit for advice on how to deal with the infestation. Imagine that you're sitting in your favorite restaurant. You'd ordered a cheeseburger, and you see the waitress bringing it to your table. You suddenly realize that you have not washed your hands, so you go to the bathroom to do so. In the meantime, a fly comes along and it lands on your cheeseburger. Since flies cannot eat solid food, the first thing they do is they vomit on your food, as the digestive enzymes in its vomit will start to liquefy the food so the fly can eat it. The fly uses its feet to stomp the vomit into the food, turning the food into a liquid. Remember, flies can carry lots of bacteria on their bodies, mostly on their feet, so it contaminates your food with some bacteria. Once the food is partially digested, the fly then slurps it up. It probably drops some fly excrement back onto your food at the same time. In the meantime, you've washed your hands and you come back to the table. The fly flies away, and it's your turn to eat the cheeseburger. Thank you for your attention. You have now completed the 1st District Health Unit Food Safety for Food Service Employees course. It is important that you take the test as quickly as possible so the information stays fresh in your mind. Bring any notes with you to your testing location. Remember, you must have your test code to take the test.